In New York City, it's not uncommon for people to work 80+ hours a week just to afford a tiny, overpriced apartment that barely fits a bed and a dream. The grind is real. Corporate warriors, creative freelancers, startup founders, and service workers alike push themselves to the edge, chasing success in a city that never slows down. Hustle culture is deeply embedded in the DNA of New Yorkers, where people wake up before dawn, juggle multiple gigs, and still feel like they're running behind. This is the story of Alvarez. New York City is choking me, literally. Jason Alvarez used to love the city. Back in his 20s, the bright lights and endless hustle made him feel alive, like he was part of something bigger. But now, at 38, New York didn't feel alive anymore. It felt suffocating. The car horns, the sirens, the non-stop motion, it all blended into one giant, never-ending headache. He was stuck in it, like a fly in syrup. Jason drove Uber 6, sometimes 7 days a week. 12-hour shifts were normal. 14 weren't unheard of. His whole life was GPS routes, surge pricing, and silent rides with strangers who barely looked up from their phones. Some were nice, most weren't. One afternoon, he picked up a finance bro in Midtown who barked, "Try not to hit any potholes, my back's already a mess from my Peloton." Jason bit his tongue. That night, he drove a tipsy tourist couple who argued about their dinner bill the entire ride to Brooklyn, and left without tipping. His car is a used Toyota Camry which had its own set of complaints. Every few weeks it needed something: brakes, tires, oil changes. Jason often joked that his car made more doctor visits than he did, only that it wasn't a joke. He lived in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. Rent had gone up 3 times in the last 2 years, but nothing else had. Not the space, not the water pressure, certainly not his patience. His wife, Mel, was doing her best, homeschooling their youngest while managing part-time shifts at a local bakery. Their kids, 5 and 8, were growing up fast, too fast, and Jason felt like he was missing all of it. The final straw came on a Tuesday night around 11 p.m. Jason had just dropped off a passenger in the Bronx when a man flagged him down near a bodega. Jason slowed, thinking it was a pickup. But the man wasn't looking for a ride, he was looking for trouble. The guy yanked open the back door, climbed in, and pulled something from his jacket that looked a lot like a gun. Jason's heart hit his throat. A few tense minutes passed, Jason talking fast, trying to stay calm, before the guy mumbled something about getting the wrong car and stumbled back out. Jason drove home in silence, hands still shaking on the steering wheel. The next morning, he found something on the kitchen table that hit him even harder than the night before. It was a drawing, crayon on lined paper. His daughter had drawn their family, mom, brother, herself and Jason. Only Jason wasn't standing beside them, he was behind the wheel of a tiny car in the corner. The title of her drawing, "When Daddy's Not in the Car," that broke him. He stared at it for a long time, then he looked around at the apartment, the chipped paint, the stack of unpaid bills, the gray sky outside the window, and he made a decision right then and there. Enough, they were done with the city. It didn't matter where they went, as long as it was somewhere quiet, somewhere green, somewhere he could breathe again. When Jason told people they were moving to Missouri, most of his friends blinked like he had just said Mars. Missouri? One friend said, "Is that where they grow tractors?" But Jason didn't care. After what happened in the Bronx and that heart-wrenching drawing from his daughter, he was done with city life. No more sirens, no more subways, no more explaining to his kids why daddy's tired again. They scraped together every dollar they had, cashed out a tiny retirement account, sold off furniture, even let go of Mel's cherished espresso machine. It barely fit in the kitchen anyway. When they finally had $60,000, Jason found the listing, a 100-year-old farmhouse for $35,000. It needs work, solid bones. It sat on 6 acres of land just outside a sleepy Missouri town called Maple Hollow. The listing had 5 photos, none very flattering, but one caught Jason's eye, a shot of the basement, dusty, shadowy, and in the corner, a strange outline in the wall, like rust bleeding through concrete. He zoomed in, a shape, rectangular, almost, like a door. He showed Mel, "Maybe it's a coal chute," she shrugged, "or an old man's pantry." Jason joked. They laughed, but Jason couldn't stop staring at that wall. 2 weeks later, they were standing in front of it, their new home. The house looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. The roof sagged slightly, a shutter hung by one hinge, and vines curled like fingers across the siding. But there was something charming about its crooked porch and the way the trees framed the gravel driveway like a tunnel from another time. It was quiet, peaceful, even the air smelled different, rich, earthy, like old leaves and clean rain. Jason took a deep breath and coughed. "Smells like freedom," he wheezed. Behind the house, a few wild chickens roamed like they owned the place. The kids ran after them, giggling. Mel stood in the doorway with a coffee mug and a smile that Jason hadn't seen in years. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. That first week, they scrubbed every inch of the place, ripped out moldy carpet, patched drywall, battled what seemed like 1,000 spiders. Then came the basement. It was dark, musty, and smelled like history. Cobwebs hung like drapes, and old shelves were stacked with rusted paint cans and broken tools. Jason's son, Max, explored with a flashlight like a tiny detective. Then he froze and tapped on a wall. "Daddy, it's hollow here." Jason dropped what he was doing. The wall had that same outline he saw in the photo, just clearer now. He knocked. A low, empty thud echoed back. Not concrete, something behind it. They grabbed a chisel and hammer. The plaster flaked off like old skin. Then, clang, metal. They uncovered a steel vault door, bolted into the foundation, a heavy wheel lock, a faded keypad. The whole thing looked like it belonged in a spy movie. Dust coated it like a tomb. No writing, no handle, just waiting. Mel looked at Jason, uneasy. "What the hell is that?" she said. Jason stared at it, wondering, a strange chill running down his arms. "I don't know," he whispered, "but I think this house has a history or a secret." At first, Jason tried to let it go. The vault was a mystery, sure, but maybe it was best left sealed. Mel certainly thought so, but every time he brought it up, she gave him that look. The one that said we came here for peace, not problems. But Jason couldn't stop thinking about it. He searched county records, property deeds, old inspection reports. Nothing, no mention of a vault, not a single word about anything below the foundation. It was like it had been erased, or maybe, hidden on purpose. Then came the letter. It showed up in their mailbox one morning, plain white envelope, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, which says, "Don't open the vault unless you're ready to die broke or rich." Jason read it 3 times, his fingers tingled, his stomach turned. He showed Mel. Her face went pale. "I don't like this," she said. Jason laughed it off. "Probably a prank," he said. But inside, something had shifted. That night, he stared at the door again. The wheel lock, the keypad, dusty, dead, powerless. Whatever was in there, someone didn't want it found. He dove into YouTube, searching for videos about lockpicking, safe-cracking, Cold War vaults. He tried a crowbar, then a power saw. The steel didn't even scratch, so he went deeper. On an obscure Facebook forum called Deep Steel Operators, Jason posted a photo of the vault, asking if anyone recognized it. A week passed, then, a reply came in with username, KN0WX, that's a Protex 53, Cold War era vault. If it's not empty, it's illegal. Jason's heart skipped. He messaged back immediately. KN0WX responded hours later with an offer, $2,000 for a remote decoding guide, no refunds, no details up front, just trust. Jason didn't have $2,000, but now the obsession had him. He couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. The vault wasn't just a curiosity anymore, it was a calling. Then came the decision he didn't tell Mel about. He pawned her wedding ring, drove to a motel 2 towns over, where a man in a trench coat sold him black market thermal gear and an industrial diamond tip drill, straight from the back of a van with out-of-state plates. Jason got to work, night after night, while his family slept upstairs. He drilled in the cold basement, slow, careful. The metal fought back, but he fought harder. The sound echoed like thunder underground. Dust filled the air like snow. On the 3rd night, just after 3 a.m., a groan, then, a click. Jason spun the wheel. It turned. The vault door creaked open with a hiss of stale air. Inside was no treasure, no gold, no stacks of cash. Instead, papers, dozens, stacked in aged folders tied with string. Photo slides, grainy black and whites of people in uniforms, documents written in Russian, and at the back, a wooden crate. Jason opened it. Inside, typewritten files, yellowed pages stamped in red, DOD, eyes only. His pulse roared in his ears. This wasn't just a secret vault, it was something forbidden. And suddenly, Jason realized, he might have just cracked open a piece of history, or a very dangerous mistake. At first, Jason thought he'd found junk, old military documents, weird photos, military codes he couldn't read. He figured it was Cold War clutter, maybe something interesting to a museum, sure, but nothing that would change their lives. But then he showed one of the papers, a letter typed in faded Russian, to the town's retired historian, Mr. Caldwell, a man who collected war relics and civil defense manuals like baseball cards. Caldwell held the document up to the light, muttering to himself. Then he paled. Slowly, he backed away from the table and sat down. "You don't understand," he whispered. This is connected to Operation Paperclip." Jason blinked. "Operation what now?" Caldwell leaned in, his voice barely audible. "After World War II, the United States smuggled Nazi scientists into the country, gave them new identities, put them to work on rockets, weapons, experiments. Some of those scientists vanished. Rumor was, one of them turned rogue." He pointed at the seal on the folder. "This isn't just military junk, it's a buried secret and you've dug it up." Turns out, the vault was the final hiding spot of a defector, the one who smuggled out evidence before vanishing in the 1960s. Inside those files were connections to a missing $30 million weapons fund that had supposedly been laundered through Shell research labs and black budget projects. Jason's stomach turned. He wasn't sitting on junk. He was sitting on dynamite. 2 days later, a black Jeep showed up in the driveway. Out stepped the man he met on a Facebook group, KN0WX, not a hacker, not some kid behind a keyboard, but a clean-cut man in his 50s, wearing mirrored sunglasses and speaking in a voice so calm it chilled Jason's bones. "I will give you $500,000, cash," he said, "no questions, just hand it all over." Jason refused. KN0WX didn't argue, he simply nodded, stepped back into his Jeep, and drove away. That night, Jason noticed a red light blinking in the trees, a drone. The next morning, he found footprints around the house. Then came the worst part. The barn burned down, no lightning, no fire source, just gone. Mel, his wife, lost it. "This was supposed to be our fresh start," she shouted, "not your war with the ghost of the Cold War." She packed a bag, threatened to take the kids to her sister's. Jason begged her to stay, swore he'd protect them. He took the documents, every last one, and sealed them into PVC pipes, burying them in different spots across the property, under trees, behind the chicken coop, in the empty well. Then he did something crazy. He started leaking tiny pieces online, an image here, a memo there. He posted them to conspiracy forums under the alias, FarmTruth88. Within weeks, he went viral. People dissected every post like treasure maps. Threads exploded with theories. One forum claimed it proved time travel experiments, another swore it was linked to JFK, then came the email, Netflix, they wanted to talk, then came the call. A Washington, D.C. attorney, speaking on behalf of, well, an interested party. Jason stared at the phone, his hands trembling. He thought finding the vault was the craziest part, but now, he realized, he was just getting started. Jason Alvarez never imagined that leaving New York City would lead to the biggest, wildest plot twist of his life. He traded in honking horns and backseat complaints for Missouri sunsets and chicken feed, but instead of finding just peace, he found a secret Cold War vault. And now the world wanted to know everything. After weeks of back-and-forth calls, legal documents, and private meetings in neutral locations, Jason signed a deal with a major streaming studio, $3 million upfront for exclusive rights to his story and the documentary rights to the Farm Vault files. They flew in a camera crew, they filmed reenactments, sat down for emotional interviews, even brought in Cold War experts to analyze the files he had uncovered. It wasn't just entertainment, it was history, hidden in a Missouri basement and found by a broke ex-Uber driver with nothing to lose. Shortly after the streaming deal, he received a visit, not by black cars, not by force, but through a quiet, respectful letter from a federal agency. They didn't threaten him, they didn't deny anything, they simply made a deal, return the majority of the classified materials, and walk away clean. Jason agreed. He packed up the documents, still sealed in PVC tubes, and handed them over in a quiet exchange on neutral ground, and in return, he was granted full immunity, and more importantly, his family's safety was guaranteed. But he kept one thing, a small, vintage Russian pocket watch found deep in the vault. Inside the lid, engraved in old Cyrillic, was a line that translated to the traitor with the golden vault. He didn't know who it was meant for, the defector, a scientist, himself, but the weight of that watch reminded him every day that history doesn't just happen, it hides, and sometimes, it waits for someone desperate enough to dig it up. With the money from the deal, Jason and Mel finally rebuilt the farmhouse, new roof, fresh paint, a wraparound porch, and an actual playroom for the kids. The land, once silent and mysterious, now echoed with laughter and the barking of their new golden retriever. The barn was rebuilt too, this time stronger, brighter, full of tools and hope. Their two kids spent their afternoons riding bikes down the gravel driveway, playing tag near the chicken coop, and unknowingly running over the same patches of earth where Cold War secrets once slept. In one of the final scenes of the documentary, Jason sits for an interview. He wears a clean flannel shirt, a trimmed beard, and a peaceful smile. He looks into the camera and says, "I left the city to start a quiet life. I was just tired of being broke. But sometimes, money doesn't knock, it hides, and you've got to dig until your hands bleed." The final shot of the documentary fades in. Jason stands alone on a warm afternoon, holding a glass of sweet tea. He's barefoot on the grass, standing directly above where the vault used to be. He looks off into the horizon with a half smirk and says, "I was an Uber driver, all I wanted was peace. What I got was a classified mess that made me rich." And just like that, Jason's crazy, unbelievable story became a part of American legend.